my Russian colleagues are very, very shocked. Most of my Russian colleagues have left. So, and it seems probably permanently. People got quite sick of talking about COVID, which had elicited a fairly idiotic response worldwide and still is doing so slightly. You know, there's a great American expression, who are you going to believe, me or your own lying eyes? Would I play Putin? Would I play Stalin? Would I play Hitler? Sure, why not?
Hello, my name is Mikhail Zygar. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel because every week I'm speaking to the greatest minds of humanity, and today my guest is John Malkovich, one of the best actors alive.
Thank you for your time.
Pleasure.
Yesterday there was the first night of your great performance, and we're now in Riga. And if I'm not mistaken, you've started rehearsing this performance before everything collapsed, before the war started.
Yes.
Did it?
Yes, we started rehearsing over a year ago, I think. I was looking at emails this morning for something to see if Timofey had sent me a version of this play in French. Of course, it was originally written in French. And I think we started probably in May of last year, a long time ago.
Yeah, but did the war somehow affect your attitude, the performance itself? Or?
No, I don't think the performance itself or my attitude. It made it very complicated because the majority of the production was Russian. So all my colleagues except for Ingeborga are Russian. So, and Inga lived in Moscow. So.
Actually, she's British, but
yeah. Well, Lithuanian and British. But for me, that wasn't so complicated, meaning we agreed we were going to go ahead with the play. For a while, I wasn't sure if we would or not. I mean, I thought if maybe it's not now, maybe we'll do it later. But we were able to work everything out eventually, and it went ahead.
I found out that you happen to be decorated with Ukrainian Order of Merit decades ago. That's written on your Wikipedia page.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Is it true?
Cool. Probably.
Do you have any special connection with?
No, not so much. I've played there. In fact, I did a show in Maidan Square about, I want to say 5 years ago, but it could have been less. Could have been 4 years ago. I did with Riccardo Muti, the great conductor. A piece we had done at Chicago's Symphony called The Lincoln Portrait, which is Aaron Copland's piece about Abraham Lincoln, and we played it there in Kiev a few years ago, and so I was there a few years ago.
What are your feelings now about the tragedy that is?
Well, I mean, whenever I see a war, I mean, a lot of it I always think of some lines from William Faulkner's great novel, The Sound and the Fury, which go like this: no battle is ever won. It is not even fought. the field only reveals to man his own folly and despair, and victory is an illusion of philosophers and fools. It's tragic. But, you know, I come from a country that gives a war just about every year, so, you know, it's not for me to say much about anybody else, really. You know.
Yeah. You always said that you're not political at all, and you stopped voting in early 70s.
1972.
Yeah. Is it still true? Haven't you changed your mind recently?
No.
And why so?
I think it's kind of like being religious. I'm not religious either. You say in French, je suis pas pratiquant. I'm not practicing. I don't really believe in politics. Today I was at the National Museum here in Latvia, and I saw there was a nice whole room of exhibits from a Latvian communist, who of course was murdered by Stalin in 37 or 38 on some fake. I mean, I'm just not a believer. I don't believe particularly there's a good party, or that there are particularly good people, or that there's any reason to listen to them about much of anything. I like Havel, but apart from that, I don't care much.
Ironically, probably the most popular politician in today's world happens to be an actor. That's Ukrainian President Zelensky, who used to play for most of his professional career. Do you think that being an actor could really help during the war period, because like person feels that he's not himself. He tries to be a better leader than he's able to.
I don't know if being an actor helps so much. I saw a study once that said actors are good or better than normal people at telling whether someone's telling the truth or not, but I don't have any reason to believe that's true. I don't remember what this study was based on, but strikes me as kind of unlikely. Actors say all kinds of stupid things, so I don't think acting is help for much, really, except being an actor.
You've got a huge experience of playing different villains in theater or in movies. You were not exactly Harvey Weinstein, but some kind of Harvey Weinstein in The Bitter Wit. Last time I saw you,
we met.
Before this performance. Is it hard to play a living person, someone who still exists?
All the people you play are living, meaning for that hour or 2 hours or 3 hours or 2.5 hours. I don't think it so much matters if they actually existed or even still exist. At least doesn't much matter to me. I never really, trying to think, I don't think I ever really based, I did, well, he was dead though. I haven't played that many real people, quote. I'm not sure there are that many real people. I did play Jack Unterweger, an Austrian journalist and writer and poet and playwright and serial killer. But he killed himself in the 90s. So,
Would you like to play Vladimir Putin, for example, if you were offered such a role?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think much in terms of playing someone. I think about how something is written. I mean, essentially, in the play I'm doing now, this is a play about forbidden desire, whatever that may mean. And in this concept, it's a pedophile, but I don't really think about that. I think about playing this person. So when I've been offered things of real people, I was offered one of the parts, I can't remember what, in the movie about the death of Stalin, based on the play that they did in England, and I think Steve Buscemi played Khrushchev, and I can't remember who played what, otherwise Stalin and what have you, and all that Soviet crowd. It would depend on what the writing was, if it was good or not.
And did you like that play?
I liked it. I mean, of course, I read Volkoganov, and I read Montefiore, and I read all the books about Stalin. So, and those are very interesting, let's say. And in fact, I was offered to play Stalin in a play. I can't remember if I think I was offered to play Stalin. This was some years ago in an American writer. Interesting play. I didn't end up doing it, but wouldn't stop me from doing it because it was Stalin. I mean, that's not my job to say I only play heroes or villains. It's not really my job.
But you know that Russian audience always speculates about that the typical portrayal of a Russian in a Western movie or in a Western series is very stereotypical, like Russian villains, Russian gangsters, Russian oligarchs, and actually you played in The Villains one of the most picturesque Russian oligarchs. Do you think that the image of Russian or Russia would change a lot within the upcoming years, months, or decades?
I don't know. That's a good question, Misha. I don't know. It's hard to say. I'm not very good at prognosticating. When we were here rehearsing in January, my Russian colleagues were asking me, is there going to be a war? And I kept saying, what? No. What do I know?
No one could have predicted that.
No, I certainly couldn't have. And I can't really predict some change in the way Russians or Russian culture is viewed. But I would say, I think Russian culture is made up of many things. And most of them don't particularly have a lot to do with the political leadership at this point in time. Most art happens in spite of that, really, or around that. So I know my Russian colleagues are very, very shocked, and pretty much most of my Russian colleagues have left. So, and it seems probably permanently. So that's a big change in itself. And I think a loss, obviously, for Russia, but it'll be Europe's gain, I suppose, really.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Actually, that's not it's not something that we wish to achieve and to.
Of course not, but
Yeah.
I think many years ago with Ingeborga, actually, something I directed her in, I adapted, and eventually with Don DeLillo, his great novel Libra, about Lee Harvey Oswald. And in that, Ingeborga played Marina Oswald, Oswald's wife, and she did the Russian translations for the scenes that we did in Russian and everything. And a great American novel, in my opinion, one of the great American novels of the last century, came out in, must have been the late 80s, I suppose. Really great piece of writing. And in it, one of the characters says, history is the sum total of all the things they're not telling us. And I think that's pretty accurate. That's also another reason why I don't do politics, because I don't believe. I've been lied to way too many times, so. And I wasn't much of a believer in the first place, so.
You know, I could even say that I guess that one of the most accurate portrayal of, if not politics, but how the authorities or the intelligence services work, I consider the film, the movie you participated, Burn After Reading, to be exactly rather accurate, because like it shows that sometimes stupidity runs the.
Yeah. I think the world is ruled mostly by chaos, a lot of stupidity, a lot of greed also, but a huge amount of incompetence too. You know, as I say, I'm old enough to remember that the New York Times said Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. I mean, A, as if we don't, and B, what happened with that? You know, the head of our CIA supposedly said it was a, quote, slam dunk. Well, and? So, you know, I've been wrong a million times, and maybe I'm wrong about everything, I have no idea. But that's why I don't really, I don't believe. I believe in the work I try to do, and my colleagues, and I try to surround myself with colleagues I believe in their talent or their vision or their striving to do something good. But I don't believe in much outside of that, you know.
Do you think that still current political situation can change the art, and that the war that is happening would like change the face of today's theater, of today's art, and like the topics that are important for the filmmakers, for the theater directors?
But I think the West is very, very insular, so I wouldn't think it would change it much. To be honest, no. I mean, I think in the West they're interested in very insular things. Now they're interested in wokeness and gender and all of these things much more than if people live or die. You know, that's their interest, really. Race, tribalism, politics, power, that's their interest, really.
So you think that this problem is going to be forgotten, or
I think it was never remembered.
Oh, really?
I mean, I think it sells newspapers and advertising and things like that. Gives people something to talk about. People got quite sick of talking about COVID, which had elicited a fairly idiotic response worldwide and still is doing so slightly. Completely unscientific as far as I could tell, but hey, I'm not a scientist. I mean, neither are they for the most part, but hey. So when the world tires of something like that, then they need something else to talk about, right? I mean, that's how the media works. And whether what they talk about is true or false, or whether it has grayer areas than they say it does, or etc., that's what happens with the world, you know. I saw just the other day an article, I think it was from CNN, saying that scientists were racing to discover now if boosters reduce the body's immune response to COVID. How about that? I mean, if I told you, I told the woman standing over there that months and months ago, would you believe me? But I'm not a scientist, so I couldn't possibly know anything. But a lot of what we're told by everybody is BS. It's really BS. So, you know, and how, you know, do you remember the American presidential debate when Obama said to Mitt Romney that the 80s wanted their foreign policy back when Russia and America were, I mean, supposedly in détente or perestroika or what have you, but actually they weren't. Anyway, so, and people love that remark. Well, what do they say now? What happened with that?
But a lot has changed from the Russian side, and actually,
and probably the American side.
Russia has started the war.
I guess you saw the pranksters called George Bush the other day, and he said, yeah, we said we weren't going to ask the Ukraine to be in NATO or blah, 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 but things change. Isn't that? I mean, now, again, I don't want to get into political things. I read history. There is no history now. There's blah, blah. You know, they say journalism is the first draft of history. I say I'll wait for the 10th draft.
Yeah, but when thousands of people die, that's history.
It becomes, but when you don't know who killed them, for instance, look at Katyn Forest. You know that story, I'm sure. 22,000 soldiers, officers, etc., of the Polish cavalry who had surrendered. We were told until what, the 80s, 90s, they were massacred by Nazis. In fact, they were killed by the Soviets. So
And now it's known. Now it's 100%.
But not then. Not when it mattered.
Yeah, it was disputed, and then there were two.
No, it wasn't disputed. It was lied about.
Yeah.
And therefore,
The Polish side, the Western
That's right.
side claimed that, like German side, Germans said that they were killed by Soviets.
which they were.
Yeah.
And this is not a round of applause for the Nazi side. This is saying that the big worry in the world is the quality of information. You know, you saw a play last night. You traveled to Riga. You saw a play. The play happened. Now, what you think about it, or what I think about it, or what somebody else thinks about it, but that I can't say. But it actually happened. The problem with many world events is we have no idea what actually happened.
Was it always like that, or has
It was always like that.
Or, for example, social media and many new channels of information are aggravating the
I don't think that helps much culture, but on the other hand, information was very tightly controlled by censors, by the disappeared, by, oh, look at these 8 people in a photo with Stalin. Oh, look, 2 years later, there are 6 people. Oh, look, 5 years later, there are 3 people. Oh, look, 9 years later, he's by himself. Well, you know, if you read, you know, for instance, Moscow, 1937, Karl Schlogel's great book, it's shocking what happened, but they didn't know about it in 37 or 47 or 67. You know, this was written a few years ago. It's so.
Yeah, but how come it can happen now? Because we are so technologically advanced. We have thousands of different sources of information.
Yeah, but you can't really follow 1,000 sources of information, and people generally search information that confirms their prejudices. I mean, this is a known phenomena.
Yeah.
If they believe this, then they search out the information that confirms what they believe. This is pretty much a given. And so that's why I find it kind of hard to believe, period. Because you know, there's a great American expression, who are you going to believe, me or your own lying eyes? And that kind of sums it up, I think, you know.
But do you think that the values people believe in can change? Because we saw Me Too movement, and you acted in a play about Harvey Weinstein, and like it seems that Me Too movement has changed the attitude to several
I hope so.
very important issues.
I hope so. I mean, that's, I think, by and large, a very positive example, but there are many negative ones, too. Not necessarily associated with Me Too, although that could be the case. I really don't.
Although your play has been criticized hugely, and
of course, yeah.
and you were, I remember that you were reacting to that criticism and blaming those who were trying to ban those kinds of
well, of course,
plays.
because I don't.
You were,
I'm not
you were calling
really,
them totalitarian.
They are pretty totalitarian. I mean, people say it's the same. If you ask me, would I play Putin? Would I play Stalin? Would I play Hitler? Sure, why not? Are all those people the same? No. I've played magicians, pedophiles, painters, gangsters, psychopaths, the King of France, the King of England.
And the Pope.
And the Pope. So, okay, I'm really not for, I can understand people disliking bitter wheat. I understand that. I can understand people saying, oh, you can't make jokes about this. But see, I would say jokes, that's what they're for, to get over terrible things. I mean, if you ask me. Mm-hmm. If they're just to, I don't know, make fun of fat people or gay people or whomever, I don't know, what's the point? Mm-hmm. If I mean, humor helps us through tragedy, really, I think. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, that's what I think. So I think Harvey Weinstein or a Harvey Weinstein-like character is perfect gist for theater. Now, whether you like that treatment of it, that's a whole other question. You know? Mm-hmm. But when people say, oh, that has to be told from the female perspective, well, tell it. What's stopping you? I mean, certainly I'm not stopping you. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. So,
your works in some of your works in theater, especially when you worked for the Steppenwolf, were quite provocative, and quite brave, I would say. So, do you think that it's okay to insult, and that the artist should provoke and should insult some part of the audience?
You know, I've never set out to insult people. I've set out to do things that interest me. So I remember already, God, it must have been 20 years ago, or very nearly, so probably was 20 years ago. A young woman came to dinner at our house in France. We gave a benefit then. I'm no longer part of Steppenwolf, but I was then. And we would often do benefits at our house in France to benefit the theater. And a woman had seen a play I directed called Hysteria, which was about the meeting of Freud and Dali, and it was a kind of titularly, ostensibly an English sex farce, a kind of silly English sex farce. But in fact, it was a very, very serious investigation of sexual abuse, recovered memory, etc. And this young woman had seen it some years before when I directed in Chicago at Steppenwolf. And she maintained that I should have put a disclaimer in the program because it could trigger people with who had been sexually abused. And I don't know that I'd ever even heard the word trigger then. Mm-hmm. And I understood what she was saying, but I found it that would be very arrogant on my part to assume that something I directed would touch someone so profoundly that I'd have to give them a warning. And where does that stop? You know, I'm not much for slippery slope arguments, but who am I to know what triggers you or you or you or you or me? And for me, that's the point of theater, to be triggered. Mm-hmm. I mean, otherwise, what's the point? You could just stay at home and watch TV. Obviously, it's meant to upset you. It's meant for you to reflect on your life, on your actions, on your desires, on your behaviors. At least good plays are. For instance, I don't think people watch Bitter Wheat and go, you know, I think I'll go out and sexually harass someone. I don't think that, if they think that, they're obviously not very smart, or they're
Probably they had such a desire before that.
I would say maybe they did, or there's such ideologues that they're kind of brain dead anyway. But see, I would say that that's as far from the point as it could have possibly been. But that doesn't mean people won't think that's the point. Maybe this young woman thought the point was to be supportive of sexual abuse of young children. I mean, I don't know. Certainly, I don't believe someone could have watched that production and thought that. But I'm just one person. What do I know? I mean,
probably, I know that none of us has any possibility to predict and to see the future, but I know and I like the idea very much of your project that you've done with Robert Rodriguez, of a movie that hasn't been released yet and is going to be released in 100 years.
now only 95
in 2115, right?
something like that.
like a cognac, like a cognac, right? Yeah. Let's try to imagine how the world could look like that year when your movie is going to be released. Who's going to watch it? Do you?
No idea. Will there be people?
Yeah.
I don't know. No idea. If they're not, will the world miss us? I don't think so. What did D.H. Lawrence say? That he imagined the world would be just a rabbit hopping across a meadow. That's very possible. Who knows? I don't know. The way we're going, we're not doing so hot.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
That was my
It's
pleasure.
good to see you again.
Yeah.